Harris and Marge Bigby, and we will be talking about divine masculine and divine feminine and what that looks like. Welcome.
Hey, I'm looking forward to the conversation. So many people are confused about it or don't realize that they've got both masculine and feminine energies in their system, in their body, in
Yeah,
their or in their auras containing both. So
yeah. Yeah, I think that it's fascinating. With some of the research and videos and things that I've seen, there's in many cases there's like a big discrepancy about what both of those things mean. Um, I mean, some of the things I've seen is people don't really understand exactly what the divine masculine or the divine feminine actually means. They take it more to heart as, well, I'm a woman and I'm feminine, or you're a man and you're masculine, and it
yeah,
doesn't really mean that at all. It
not at
really
all.
doesn't.
Nothing
Yeah,
to do with
I
gender.
yeah, I mean, I happened to write something down, so I'll read that, and this kind of is the gist of it, I think, in a couple of sentences. The concepts of divine masculine and feminine refer to energetic archetypes representing different aspects of human nature. While not tied to gender, they are symbolic of universal qualities that exist in everyone, regardless of sex or gender identity. And I think that
Perfectly said.
that's perfectly said.
Yeah,
It really is.
that was
And
guided.
that was that was guided. Well, I know that you and I kind of work in that same with that same ideas that things come to us when they're supposed to divinely,
Right.
divinely guided. And and I have a tendency to like over expand on these ideas, and I'm like, gosh, I just listen reeling
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
so
It's amazing when you talk about concepts like this. They're so complex, but yet so amazingly simple. If you
yeah,
take your mind out of it and just feel it, it's so
yeah,
simple. I
yeah.
mean, there are days when, as a younger woman, I had times where I really had to rev up my masculine, divine masculine energy and stand up and say, no, this is the way it is, and be very stern and very action oriented and making sure things got taken care of. Being a single parent, women that are single mothers are not just flowers and butterflies. We got to do what's got to be done.
Yeah, you have to be decisive and make decisions, and yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
And go out and work and get things
yeah,
taken care of.
yeah.
So,
Provide for yourself and your family. Yeah,
yeah. So why don't we
yeah,
talk about the different characteristics that the divine masculine has, and then talk about the divine feminine characteristics, and kind of we can expand upon that a little bit. Make sense?
yeah, yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Um, and I just want to preface this with the divine masculine traits are different than just masculine traits.
Right.
Like, yeah. So let's go ahead and so the divine masculine. First, can we just talk about what divine means?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Because we can say masculine, feminine, or we can say divine
Divine.
masculine and feminine, right?
Right.
So this came to me before we started the podcast. I thought, what does that even mean? So we're talking divine here. So when we go outside and in my case, I've got trees and uh, rocks and a big yard. And when I go out there and I look at the sky, and it's beautiful outside, and the sun is shining and the sky is blue and my trees are green, and I've got weeds growing with purple flowers, and the bees are moving, that's divinity.
Yeah.
So the earth itself is divine, and
Mm-hmm.
our experience here should come from that space. How we
Yes.
interact with the earth
Right.
and other humans.
Yeah.
I mean,
And the spirit.
and the spirit. Yeah.
A lot of people forget they've got divinity in them. We are
Yeah.
all part of God.
We are all part of God. Yeah. And so what does that look like? Right.
Yeah.
So you take the divine masculine and the feminine. So like you said, let's go ahead and talk about the traits.
Sounds good to me.
All
So
right.
where do you want to start? Do you want me to start? We'll just bounce off each other. So to me,
Well, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you start.
yeah, divine masculine. Let's start with the masculine because I've
Okay.
heard a lot of people talking about toxic masculinity lately, and it's just a totally different thing. So divine masculine, to me, they're action oriented and driven,
Yeah.
and they got to get things done, you know, and they're
Yeah.
protective.
And they're protective and
Mhm.
supportive
Right, right, and
and
more logical.
logical.
Right.
Yeah. Logical. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
Uh-huh. hmm Um, they're self-confident.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And this is structure. They liked the structure,
hmm
having things in order. Now that is me to a T. So maybe my divine masculine's a little overdeveloped from all the years of being a single parent. I don't know. But I've always actually been a very structured organizational type individual. That doesn't mean that I'm less feminine. It just means that that is a focus that means something to me.
Yeah. Well,
And we
and
all
these are, yeah, like you said, though, these are the divine masculine traits,
right.
right? So if the masculine traits were there without the divinity, what would some of this stuff look like? What would some of these, the protectiveness or the supportiveness of a masculine might look a lot different than the divine masculine,
That's true.
right? Um, I mean, there's a lot more aggression when a person, because we're not just talking about a man or a male or a female, we're talking about people in general.
Right.
So when a person in general um, is exhibiting masculine traits that are not from the divine center, right? Then
Mhm.
it can look like aggression. It could look like anger,
Right.
controlling, um, pushy.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
hmm
And if you think about it, okay, well, let's talk about the feminine energies, and then I've got a comparison bubbling up in my mind here that I want to talk about. So with the divine feminine traits, then you've got more intuitive and nurturing um, processes, the way they behave, right?
Yeah.
And more creative and
Yes.
expressive
Yeah.
and empathetic.
Yeah. Compassionate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And more connected with nature.
Yes. Yeah.
hmm
And
hmm
yeah, that goes right along with that nurturing, right? So
hmm
you've got, in order to be empathetic and nurturing, you have to have compassion. So
hmm
that's a big part of it. And that's not to say that people with a more developed divine masculine side don't have those things. It just
Right.
means that it's a little differently balanced.
Yeah. Yeah. And having said all of that, I think that when we talk about balance, right? So all of us we're never going to come into balance like this, right? We're never
Mm.
going to do that. We will always have one more uh, trait, either masculine or feminine. You
Yep.
know what I mean? So we I want to say we, and this is one of those things I've been thinking about lately. I'm like, so how do I show my masculine and feminine traits? And um, and I say, well, gosh, girl, you take control of um, shopping, and you make sure that things are taken care of, and you are supportive of the people in your life, and you plan, and you create structure. And I'm like, okay, so where am I more nurturing, right?
Hmm.
Well, I have a dog, and I just love my dog, right? And I have my grandchildren and my children, and I some of the more feminine things I do is I sew, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
I like to write, so I write poetry and I write short stories and things like that. And so when I have thought about what we're talking about, the divine masculine and feminine, I'm like, so where am I on this scale? Where am I on this scale?
And you're
right.
talking generally, right?
I'm talking generally.
Generally.
Yeah,
Because
generally.
it could change from moment to moment depending on
That's
the
right.
situation.
That's right.
Sometimes you need to be okay. A little kid fell down on their bike in front of your house. You're going to go be nurturing and help them.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
a dog was chasing them, you're going to chase the dog away. So you got the masculine chasing the dog, and you got the feminine caring for the child, and that's
Yeah.
just part of being a person.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
opposite sides of they're all the same coin.
Mhm. I think that too, when you think about the divinity part of it, it's like being the best version of yourself,
Hmm.
whether you have to be in a situation where structure needs to take place and nobody else is doing it. Someone
Right.
has to. And if you're the one doing it, whether you're a man or a woman, um, you're a human, right?
Right.
Then if that's a necessity, then you do that,
Yeah.
right? If a child is crying, that child needs caring, compassion, maybe a hug, and it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman doing that.
Right.
So it goes back to what you just said though. If there's a child falls, you go and you help them. If a dog's coming, you chase the dog away. You're showing both qualities of that.
At the same
So
time. I mean,
at the
and
same time.
yeah, the same general time anyway.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we were talking about the divine masculine earlier. I was having visions of the angels, right? So you've got the vision of a male angel like Archangel Michael. And
Mhm.
I don't know any what female angels there are, but you have a certain energy about you when you think about a female angel versus a male
Yeah,
angel. And there's those divine traits in both of them.
yeah.
If you think about Archangel Michael, those lists of traits that we talked about, they're right on, right on.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know what your vision is, but when you're saying that, I see a man there with these big angel wings and a sword, right?
Uh-huh. Standing
Right?
there going, come on,
Yeah,
we got you.
yeah.
I'm
You got,
protecting these
yeah.
people.
I'm
And
protecting you, right?
yep,
And should the need arise, I will do whatever it takes to do
yep,
that. So,
yep.
yeah,
And a female angel in a protective mode is going to wrap her wings around you
yeah,
as opposed to stand in front of you. It's the same action, it's still protection, but it's
yeah,
a different way of doing it.
yeah. Exactly, exactly. Yeah, I mentioned to you earlier that I had watched a few videos uh, to see if what other people were saying on podcasts about what the divine masculine and divine feminine look like.
Hmm.
And it was interesting to me that um, in most cases, if it was a man who was doing the podcast, and this isn't every case. Now, I haven't watched every video. I've only watched a handful, right? And
Uh-huh.
so there's a man talking about the divine masculine, and and he spoke about it from a more patriarchal perspective, which then told me that he's speaking from a place of um, bias, which happens through conditioning,
Right. Yeah.
right? And so that's where I think some of the confusion now within a person, right? It's like if I'm a woman, I have to be all girly. I have to, act this way. And
Yeah.
other women, you know what I'm saying? I have to do my hair and wear makeup and and behave a specific way as a woman. And
Right.
then the man behaves a specific way as a man. He's going to go to the
Yeah.
gym and he's going to work out. And he's going to grow these muscles and he's going to, do all these things.
Right.
And that, to me, I'm not saying that that's the case for all patriarchal men who talk about masculinity.
Mhm.
But what
Right.
I'm saying is that that's still not. I don't know if it's prevalent, but it's still there.
Yeah.
When I clicked on the video, I mean that was the case.
Well, then you've got the algorithm to start feeding you more of the same kind of attitude,
That's right.
regardless. So it's really hard to
Yeah,
tell what's
yeah,
really out there.
yeah. Well, yeah, and so because I did do that, I thought, how many of these podcasts can I watch? And there were some of them were just short clips,
Yeah.
and and it's interesting to me the different perspectives that people have, and so I did see one that was very interesting. It was a husband and wife
Hmm.
who were talking about the divine masculine and feminine, and they were talking about it in terms of their relationship and how they've grown into understanding what it means to have that divinity as a man, as a woman, but also as a couple. And then they spoke on it. Well, she was talking about her divine masculine femininity within herself, and he was doing the same thing. And it was lovely. It was
I'll
lovely.
bet.
Hmm. Hmm.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah, yeah. And I thought, gosh, when I talk about it, when you and I talk about it, um, we're talking about it from a space of not just from how we were raised, right?
Right.
Our the external experiences that we've had, and we come from a generation uh, where we've seen it change over time.
Yeah. A
Yeah,
lot.
a lot.
Changed a lot.
Yeah.
And now
So
it's funny because when you, and it's, let's be clear, that's the divine masculine energy and divine feminine energy have not changed. The perception of masculinity and femininity have changed,
yeah,
and how
yeah,
people express that based on what their family has taught them, what their society is teaching them. And we're just talking from the United States perspective, because it's not the
yeah.
same all over the world. So
No. Yeah.
not at all. Not at all. So you've got your society teaching, your family teaching you, your social media teaching you, what's a
Hmm.
man, what's a woman,
Yeah.
and your circle of influence can
Yeah.
be very different.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I have memories of when the feminist movement started. I have
Yeah.
memories of that, and which is really interesting to me. It really was. Growing up, my dad was the typical masculine in that role. My mother was the typical feminine in that role as the mom,
Uh-huh.
right? And so I watched the evolution through them, right? As the society began, or when I don't know necessarily if it was just women who went towards the feminist movement, or if it was both men and women.
I don't I,
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I
but
don't know.
it's interesting to watch, because to me what came of it at some point was the split between masculinity and femininity, the divine, in the women started to split as a result of almost like overcompensation.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yep. And I see the same thing in men now.
Yeah,
They're overcompensating on both ends of the spectrum.
yeah.
And you, so you've got some that are embracing their feminine, divine feminine traits and expressing them, and then those that are just rejecting their divine feminine traits and trying to suppress them so they can be, macho guys. So the divine feminine, it doesn't matter what gender you are, or where you are in the world, you've got all of these traits. It's
Hmm.
just to what level are you expressing them.
Right. Well, and the funny thing too, that I mean that I find interesting is that there really is a movement towards people embracing both aspects of the
Yeah.
divinity in
Yeah.
within themselves, which
their
I
whole
think is a
their whole
yeah,
self.
their whole self, and it's beautiful.
It
It
is.
really is. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. And the closer, you and I haven't really talked about it much, but the closer I get to embracing that, the more kind of inner peace that I feel.
Yeah.
If I
It's not
don't
so
have this,
stressful
yeah, I don't
trying to
have
live
this
up to
yeah, society's idea about, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I kept trying to finish your sentence for you.
That's okay. That's okay. But I was thinking is like, the more I come into embracing both aspects and the more peace I feel, it's funny because as a woman, I didn't go learn how to work on cars or use power tools or any of those things. I mean, I was a rancher for a long time.
Yeah.
And so I've dug a lot of ditches and I, cleaned a lot of stalls and things like that and fixed a lot of fences. But
Mm-hmm.
I never learned to use like power tools and get in there and, and it's hilarious because where I am now is it's a new space for me. And I have bought myself a chainsaw and a weed whacker. And I'm not saying I've weed whacked before, right?
Yeah.
But it's funny because I'm like, okay, I'm just doing it.
Right.
I'm just doing it. I'm just, you know, and I'm not in my mind thinking, oh, I need like a divine masculine or a masculine to come in here and help direct me.
Right.
And yeah, yeah. So it's pretty interesting.
It's funny when you're doing things that are not in your normal range of uh skills, or if you make a mistake and you're embracing yourself, it's like, oh, I'm going to learn from that instead of
Yeah.
beating yourself up for it. Right?
Yeah, no, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah,
It's a totally different, it's so freeing to be able to just say, okay, I learned from that, I'll move on. Or
yeah.
you go, nowadays you go on YouTube. Used to be go to the library and look it up. How do I use this darn tool? But now you could just go on YouTube and somebody will show you.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, yay for YouTube,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
to tutorial. It's been great. So anyway, back to the masculine and feminine. I see, I really see it coming together. And what's interesting about that too is I don't know what the statistics are with divorces or long-term relationships. But in the group of people that I see, that I
Mhm.
know, those relationships are lasting longer. And some of those roles have changed to uh, where moms are staying home raising their children,
Yeah.
and the husbands are out doing the career thing.
Right.
But they're instead of it being he does this and she does that, they both have the specific roles and then they come together, right, in that
Right.
relationship. And I mean it's amazing to me. I mean they're counterparts, right? Not to get at what I'm confusing what I'm trying to get across. I'm not saying that together they come together and now they're one. What I'm saying is they both have these roles in the relationship. And
Hmm.
then when they come together, they're bringing both of those roles together to live their life and have their family and
Yeah.
yeah. So to me, it's a little bit reminiscent of the olden days where people stayed married, stayed
Yeah.
coupled, raised their children, stuff like that. So
Yeah. The commitment is a little different, I think.
I
And
think it is
the
too.
reason behind a lot of that back then was just because it wasn't socially acceptable to, to do that. And so people would stay in situations that weren't good for them. But I
Yeah,
think now people are talking more and understanding more about what they need to be in a relationship and what commitment is.
yeah.
Because commitment is not to the emotional, it's a contract.
It's a contract.
Because the emotions ebb and flow throughout your
Yeah.
life, and you can't go on emotions. I don't love you anymore. Huh? Too bad. You'll love me in a couple of weeks.
Well, it's a being committed to commitment.
Yeah.
And to me, part of that really is it's being committed to commitment, but also having that start from yourself. And
Yeah.
that is to me bringing the divine masculine and feminine together within yourself so that
Hmm.
when you go out there and you uh, partner in a relationship that's committed, that the commitment is to staying committed
It
no
really is.
matter, yeah, yeah. And I'm not saying no matter, you know, I'm not talking in a, if a relationship is abusive, I'm not talking about anything like
Right.
that. You know, I'm
Well,
talking,
the
yeah,
commitment means both people are committed. If there's abuse, it's not both people committed.
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Hmm. And I think that over time, like with the, and I'm going to say the feminist movement, and I don't really, it's not a focal point, but what it did do is it put women out into the workforce in a different way. And
Right.
so then women built up their, um, I don't know so much if it's their self-esteem, but it built them up in a way where they went to school and they got jobs and they weren't just, you know, secretaries wearing the skirt, like, you know, like the Leave
Right.
It to Beaver
Yeah.
days, you know. I mean, it changed. And so there was a lot of freedom in that movement.
Right. It also, though, wasn't just for the women, because men had always seen women as the ones that took care of the house, took care of the
Mhm.
children. That's what they did. And
Yeah.
so they didn't understand that. A lot of them didn't understand. I'm not going to say all of them, nothing is
Yeah.
everybody, but they started getting exposed to women that weren't their wives.
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh, she's smarter than me. Or she really understands what we're talking about. And so there grows respect from both sides. And the
Yeah.
women learned then to respect the men because now they saw what it was like to go out there and work your can off and come home and and after a long day and try and find 10 minutes of solace when you've
Yeah.
got children running around. It's a different, this exposure makes a big
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah. It
I
does
think
make a
that's the
difference.
case with all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, I remember I remember being in high school, not knowing that I could go and listen, this I'm sure that this is not unique, but I don't know if it's the way it was for everyone. I didn't know that I could go to college
Hmm.
because the way I grew up, and I mentioned this before, my dad went out and worked and my mom stayed home and took care of the kids.
Right.
And so my mom didn't go to college. And so I didn't know that I could go to college. And when
Yeah.
I discovered that I could, I was like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, you know, and then you learn that a lot of women are going to college and
Yep.
they've been going to college,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it all depends on what you're exposed to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
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 And then you look at our daughter's age group and the schools, high schools are pushing them, go to college, go to college, go to college. But college
Mhm.
was a totally different thing when we were young as
Yeah.
opposed to them. You didn't come out of college with 10,000 or $20,000 in debt at our age because
Yeah.
they didn't cost that much. But now you're
Or
coming out
50.
with a mortgage,
Yeah.
a mortgage worth of debt.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I mean, it's incredible to me.
Yeah.
It's funny. I have a daughter and her husband works and she stays home and is raising the children, but she grew up a rancher.
Right.
And when she went to school, um, she decided originally she was going to go to school to be a veterinarian. And I'm sure that I pushed that a little bit, right? And
Sure.
so when she finally went to college, she said, look, I don't want to be a veterinarian. She goes, I don't want to go to school that long and have that much, carry that debt,
Yeah,
right? No, I mean, the debt is overwhelming.
it is.
So what she did instead was is she went and she um, became a certified welder, and she went and cowboyed, um, you know, at a ranch.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so she did things like that, and then when she
A
got married,
typically masculine
typically masculine. That's what I mean. Is like
job.
typically masculine job,
Yeah.
and then
But none
I
of that
mean,
has anything to do with the divine masculine.
it doesn't.
Not
No,
at all.
not at all. Isn't that amazing? It
Yeah,
doesn't. So
funny. I think we got off our subject a little bit because we went on
We
to the
did.
gender subject. That's okay. Well, that's what everybody does, though. You start talking about divine masculine and feminine energies, and it
Hmm.
comes into, because we're human and we're exposed to all these conversations about gender. We
Yeah.
go into this gender identity as opposed to, and gender roles as
Hmm.
opposed to our divine energies.
Well, and I think that that comes from the patriarch, I can't even say it,
Patriarchy.
patriarchy in
Hmm.
which we have been raised.
Right.
In the United States, it's been primarily that.
Yep.
So we are, men and women have been divided that way
Yep.
through this is what men do, this is what women do. And that has nothing to do with the divinity.
Not nothing.
It doesn't. So,
Yeah, maybe we'll
yeah,
have to have a whole conversation about identity and roles
yeah,
too, because that's a whole other subject talking about, if somebody is is my age and is no longer, childbearing age or whatever,
yeah,
does that mean she's no longer feminine? You know,
right?
I mean, if you want to take it to extremes and have those kinds of
Yeah,
conversations, it's a whole other thing.
yeah,
So,
yeah. No, you're right. That's a whole other topic. We could
well,
delve into that one.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's a
yeah,
couple hours worth of chat
yeah.
itself.
Oh
So
my
you want to talk
God.
about some of the misconceptions of the divine masculine energy?
Yes, let's do that. I also have a list from that. Um, and the reason I have the list is because I can be easily distracted, just like I was now.
We both are.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, that's what, yeah, let's get distracted. Okay, so how about I run off the divine masculine misconceptions and then you do the divine feminine. All
Sounds
right.
good.
The misconceptions are aggression equals strength. Strength is often confused with dominance or force, but true divine masculine strength comes from integrity, resilience, and stable leadership.
Yep.
Yeah. Emotionally detached. The masculine isn't about suppressing emotions, rather, it is about it seeks clarity and logic while allowing space for emotional intelligence.
Hmm.
I think that's absolutely beautiful.
Absolutely.
Um, Rigid and controlling. While structure is a masculine trait, it is meant to create stability, not impose, control, or limit freedom.
Hmm.
Hmm? Yeah, only men possess it. That's the last one I have. Divine masculine energy exists in everyone, regardless of gender. So those are some of the misconceptions.
Yeah.
I mean, the list could be really long,
Yeah.
but
There's
those
just
are,
some good top of the line bullets there.
yeah, yeah.
Bullet points, I should say.
Yeah, bullet points. Yeah, yeah.
And the divine feminine misconceptions that mean are like the weakness and passivity. Feminine is sometimes mistaken for being passive or submissive, when in reality, it embodies a profound wisdom, creativity, and emotional depth. Overly emotional and irrational? No. While highly intuitive and emotionally attuned, divine feminine energy is deeply insightful and powerful in its ability to nurture and grow in transformation. To nurture growth and transformation. Lacking structure or logic. Hmm. The the feminine thrives in fluidity and adaptability. Well, I'm stuttering. Adaptability, but can be just as intentional and clear-minded when balanced. And only women possess it, is just like the masculine. Divine feminine energy is present in everyone, regardless of their gender. I think those are great points.
Those are great points. They really are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when we, as individuals, embody both aspects, and that's when, for me, that's when you find more inner peace,
Hmm.
and then guidance is kind of like all around you, really.
Yep. Peace
So,
and tranquility and just
yeah,
finding yourself.
yeah, yes, absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think a lot of it, what like we were saying earlier, is acceptance of yourself, of having all of these things
Yeah.
and all the other abilities that we haven't even talked about yet. We'll go into those in other podcasts, but
Yeah.
there's so
Yeah.
many things that people just, they put their blinders on, or they reject them, and it puts you off. You're not being yourself if you're fighting against any part of yourself. Accept it all. You're a beautiful person.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, I I would love it if if everyone could embrace both aspects of themselves and not be so persuaded to hide or block that both aspects because
Yeah.
of what they feel society demands of them or
Yeah.
expects of them.
Well, and you get people even like in work and stuff that'll say something like, wow, that person is just overbearing. And it's usually because they're fighting in themselves.
Mhm.
But then the person reacts to what's being said, and it makes it even more so.
Yeah. Well, yeah, one person's saying something, the other person's being offended by it,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Right. So what does that say to me? It says that they're fighting within themselves,
Yeah.
right? Not recognizing that um, that they're more than what society tells them they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know,
That's another podcast. Labels, labels, labels.
labels, labels,
I
labels,
want to call it labels, labels, labels.
labels, labels.
I've had a war with labels for decades, many decades.
Well, and there are a lot of labels out there.
The
There
worst
really
ones are the
are.
self-imposed ones.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Necessary for description, but not necessary for restriction. You had also talked about misconceptions about balancing your divine feminine and divine masculine. When we had
Yeah,
talked about that earlier a little bit, we were talking about it doesn't mean you're 50% this and 50% that's about, finding a balance that works for you and recognizing that you have both.
you must choose one. You have to choose one. You have to be one or the other.
Yeah,
No, that's
definitely a
not true.
misconception.
That's a
Definitely a
misconception.
misconception.
Yeah. Many believe that they must align only with the masculine or feminine energy when true personal growth comes from integrating both.
Yep.
It's all about
Accepting the
integration.
whole
Mhm.
self.
Whole
Accept
self.
whole self.
Balance means equal amounts. No, this is interesting to me, right? I love this. Balance does not mean 50-50 split. Rather, it's about knowing when to activate each energy based on the situation.
Yep. Yep. Good
Mhm.
point. And another misconception is that one's better than the other. Now,
Yeah.
maybe better for a situation, but not better
Yeah.
overall. So both
Yeah.
energies are equal.
Yeah.
They're equally valuable, and embracing both lets you, again, embrace your whole
Mhm.
self.
Yeah. Yeah.
Learning to accept yourself is difficult. The older you get, it gets easier and easier.
It does. It does. I think that you and I have a foot up on some of the younger folks who
Yeah.
don't realize that integrating both aspects, right?
Yeah.
That it's a lot easier when you let go, right, of misconceptions. When you let go of misconceptions and expectations from the external world, right?
Or even your own self.
Or especially your own self.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And where it gets confused with the gender roles.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep remembering to say roles because it's about the
Roles.
roles and not about the gender identity, because that's a whole other can of worms. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just people have these ideas. I always did growing up. And then I realized it doesn't fit me. I'm 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 fine.
Yeah.
I was fortunate to be able to find that a little bit earlier because of the relationship I had with spirit and with God, and learned that I don't have to beat myself up as much as I do. I
Yeah.
can just move on,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. Accept you made a mistake. Hopefully you learn from it. Move on.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think I was probably I was older when I learned. And I think that when I learned was when I became a rancher. So I was in my 30s when things started to come together for me. So
Mhm.
yeah. But everyone has their own timing, right? It's not like I look at the clock and go, "Oh darn, I should have integrated the divine masculine and feminine within myself. I should have known." you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, if you think back to when we were younger, I mean, you if I didn't get married till I was 22, and I know that sounds early for a lot of people, but in my town, that was late. It's like, oh, you're 22 unless you went to college.
Yeah.
You were married 18, 19, 20 years old. And so I was behind, really behind. And I didn't have my daughter till I was 26. So I was
Wow.
starting to feel like an old maid, even though I was married. I was like, I should have kids by now, but it just wasn't time. And I accepted that and moved on. And all these timelines that you're given growing
Yeah.
up, or that you're shown on TV or whatever growing up. And there was a time when 14 was the age to get married, right? Not when I was growing up, but
No.
it's been there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's all programming and social expectations. And if we would recognize how much of our attitude is built by other people's ideas instead of your idea and your spirit's idea, it's really hard to remove yourself from the programming.
Well, when you think about it though, so you're a young child and you're raised by parents or adult figures,
Yep.
and so you learn to live within that family dynamic, and then
Mhm.
you go to school and you have that
Whole
dynamic.
other set of,
Your whole
yeah,
other you I mean, and so what you're doing is you're actually putting on the coats of other people. All
right.
these belief systems that weren't yours. They're borrowed. So
Yeah.
my parents believe this. I'm going to wear that. My
Yep.
my teachers believe this. I'm going to wear that.
My church says this, I'm going to grab
I'm
that.
gonna I'm gonna wear that. So by the time we're trying to discover who we are, we're
Start
like
taking
walking
off
around with
all
all these
these coats.
protect, you know, you
I
know.
just pictured the kids when they were little in the snowsuits with the layers and layers and layers
Yeah.
and
Well, and
taking
think
the
about
layers
it
off.
too. I mean, I've thought about it like this as well. It's like, so we put on all those coats that are beliefs. So how many layers of these beliefs are we carrying? And then as we get older, we start looking at them. Do I really believe this?
Yeah.
I don't think I do. So I'm going to give it back.
Yeah, Condo
No, no,
Marie, your
thank you. You
whole
can
belief
have.
system. You know Condo Marie?
Yeah.
Marie Kondo?
No.
Okay,
No.
so she does this house cleaning method where you go through your closets and you touch everything and say, does this spark joy in my life? And if it
Oh,
does, you keep it. If it doesn't, you either donate it or throw it away. And you got 3 baskets and you go through, everything fits so nice when you're done. Because if it doesn't really make you happy when you touch it, you shouldn't be keeping it. If you did that same thing to your belief systems, you'd be a totally different person and so much happier
yeah.
because you wouldn't be fighting all these different ideas that are conflicting.
Yeah. You wouldn't be heavy with that stuff.
Hmm.
You wouldn't be heavy with it.
Yep.
I like that. I like that idea. Taking a belief and looking at it. Does this bring me joy?
Yeah.
Does this bring
Yeah.
me excitement? No, it doesn't. Okay. Well, what about this one? Well, that does. Okay, I'll keep that.
I'll keep that one.
Yeah.
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 If it feels real and true to your path.
Yeah.
'Cause everybody's journey is different too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
There is no correct way.
Well, what's really funny about that too is that's another one of those belief systems that we wear, that someone's given us.
Right.
This is your path,
Yeah.
right? And what do
Yeah.
you mean? And you're like, what? This is my path. Yes, you go that way. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want to go. They're like, go that way. That's where you go. Right? Like,
Right.
no, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. This has been fun. I look forward to the next episode.
Me too.
Um,
So before we wrap up, we encourage you, everybody, to think about how these energies show up in your life. And do you lean more towards one or the other? Right?
yeah,
Makes sense.
perfect. Makes sense.
And next time, we'll talk more about how you balance your divine feminine and divine masculine energy and different methods of doing that.
Yeah,
In the meantime, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channels. And we love you very much. And thanks for joining us.
perfect.